Welcome, welcome. Dr. Maxfield here for those of you who are new, which for a live video, I suspect that very few people are. Let's just chat while people start rolling in. I know there's, hey, look, notification, I'm live. Hopefully it sounds all right. I'm just going to check this out. Check. Notification, I'm live. All right, perfect. That sounds good. All right, so I hope everybody's doing well. Let me flip over to where I can see the comments here. Oh, wow, that is nice. Okay, perfect. Let's see here. We've not reviewed any products from Buddha. So, sorry, I'm already like rolling into the comments here. We will do a couple of things today. We'll talk about some of the ways we're going to do lives moving forward. This is traditionally I'll do like a topic. We'll kind of touch on a topic and then we'll go into some questions and answers. And yes, we'll absolutely be doing that today too. The topic for today though is kind of progressing in skincare. So I made a graphic. I don't know why. I was kind of just ruminating on this over the last week, kind of thinking about how some people are extremely minimalistic and some people have very long, complicated routines, but how there's kind of still a place for a lot of those niche specialty ingredients when, of course, the data is out there. And I was like, well, how am I going to organize my thoughts on this? And so I came up with an idea. I was looking at we always, in medicine, there's graphs upon graphs upon graphs when we look at data. And I was looking at some graphs. And I was like, you know what? Skincare is just like this. I think it's called a biological growth curve. And I was, you know what, the skincare is just like this. If you're someone who has never washed their face, which for people who are in the skincare game, you're like, does that actually happen? Yeah, absolutely. That happens. I mean, it's actually pretty commonplace, I think, for people who aren't very focused on their skin health or with skin concerns to just go through life. But for someone who's entering the space and just starting to wash their face, I mean, that's a step in the right direction. And I'm going to kind of break this down based off of my own personal anecdote. So this is not science. There is no actual data to support this graph that I'm about to show you. This is just my personal opinion. And not only my personal opinion, but I'd say also my professional opinion, because I'm taking my experiences not only in regards to what I've experienced in my own life, but that's kind of the beauty of being a doctor or dermatologist on social media, is I also get to look at all of my patients and kind of categorize all of those encounters and then hopefully put that forward in a meaningful and helpful way. So check this out. Watch. I am going to share this with you. Oh, that is so nice. This is so nice. For those of you who struggled with me, I am not tech savvy, so I'm thrilled and honestly kind of astonished anytime something technology related works. So this is a curve. There is an equation associated with this curve that at this point is beyond me. I took calculus over a decade ago and I couldn't create the equation or recreate the equation if I wanted to. But I want to walk through this with you, and I'm going to actually post kind of an explanation video on my Instagram after this. Just a quick summation of what I think this kind of puts forward and what you can do with this information. So at the very bottom, and let's see here, where is my finger? At the very bottom, there's a delay with me watching with the watching face. So on the x-axis, the one that goes across the bottom, I have skincare, and that's everything you're doing, right? So those are the products you buy, the ingredients you use, and everything that you're cumulatively putting together to try to help your skin be happy, healthy, glowy, dewy, if that's what you want. And then on the y-axis, the vertical axis, I put skin gains. And this is kind of the improvement that I think people would expect to see in the mirror over time. Now, there's no time component to this necessarily. This is just like ingredients and what you do on the bottom, improvement on the y-axis, and let's map this out. So washing the face is that first step. And I'm kind of hard on cleansers, I think. I think for those of you who followed us for a while, you know, there's very few ingredients I like better in a cleanser, and that's because you do kind of rinse it off in a short period of time. We've already talked about the whole idea of short contact therapy with Tretinoin and vitamin A in depth in other videos or other lives. And, you know, it takes longer than you'd think for these ingredients to absorb into the skin. So basically, if you're cleansing your face, it's a good start. Even if there's tons of active ingredients in it, it's probably still just a good start. And what you're looking for here is a growth up. So washing your face really incrementally increases probably the results you're going to see on your skin moving upward. Now, the next step is probably the biggest step. This one and the next one, I couldn't really categorize which one was going to have the more dramatic result because they kind of work for a different person. So the next one being retinoids and SPF. You're like, okay, I mean, does everybody need a retinoid? The answer is no, but it's kind of exceptional when a person wouldn't benefit from it. And it's usually due to irritation for someone who has perhaps atopic dermatitis or erythema, rosacea, or very sensitive skin. That's the person who's excluded. But for everybody else, I mean, it's the foundation for acne. It's the foundation for pretty much everything, all things photoaging, anti-aging. And because of that, it's a staple. And you'll see a lot of people, and I've talked about this before in some of our oldest videos and probably in the lives as well, because I talk and ramble a lot in the lives because I'm the only one talking. But even dermatologists throughout my years rotating as a medical student during residency, you do see a lot of dermatologists who hang their hat on the benefits of retinoids, and that exclusively. So you'll see their whole routine might be wash face, sunscreen, come home, maybe you wash face again, and retinoid, right? Or I guess the maybe wash would probably be in the morning. But the retinoid really goes a long way, especially if you're comfortable with prescription tretinoin or other alternatives now at this point. And if you're tolerating it well, able to use it nightly, those results can be fairly dramatic and fairly foundational. It covers so many sins, so to speak. And then sunscreen, of course, does the same thing. It's just the most effective cornerstone backbone for protecting your skin. So those get you a long way. And that's why I think you have some people who are just like foundationally minimalistic in their routine and they just don't budge. But that's for the person who has very, very healthy skin at baseline, right? There's someone who doesn't have a lot of actual skin concerns or skin conditions that they're trying to actively treat. They've just got a good baseline. They want to maintain it. They want to age gracefully, slowly. That's perfectly acceptable. Now, the next group and the next leap that you'll kind of quantify here, going up that chart, this is for the person who really has something, a goal in mind, or a skin condition they're actively trying to treat. So this is that targeted skincare ingredient. So if it's hyperpigmentation, hydroquinone is going to give you a big jump, obviously combined with other ingredients, but that one really can give you a big jump. Moisturizing. I actually put here. So I wasn't sure if to put moisturizing into its own category. But moisturizing is probably more controversial than you realize, I realized, because I think a lot of people who have oilier skin live in humid environments. They just don't feel that innate need to. However, I will say, especially over time and as people get older and our skin stops making those natural moisturizing factors, natural oils, ceramides, as much as they used to, consistently, I see this every single day, people find that, I didn't have to use to moisturize before, but I sure do now. And so that's why moisturizing maybe doesn't get a dedicated step here, but it really does help tremendously for that person with dry skin. It is obviously a foundational step in skincare, but there are a lot of people who just don't feel like it's necessary. But it's a targeted thing for dry skin where it really makes a huge difference. And it actually really helps your skin look very healthy in the immediate effect. It's like one of those things you put it on and you feel and look a lot better pretty quickly. Also here I put like prescription acne ingredients because of course those are very highly effective and they're going to make a tremendous change in a person's skin quality and health after being treated. And that's the purple here. So that takes you another whole level up this logarithmic, exponentially increasing growth phase where the results are going to be pretty dramatic over a few months period of time. And then the next step here, this is where we kind of start to approach that plateau. And I really think this does exist. And I really think this is where people don't get hung up, but I think there's more controversy about how much to invest and dedicate with this part of the growth phase. I don't think anyone's really going to argue heavily that, you shouldn't wear, they should, okay, I take that back. Someone's going to argue that you shouldn't wear sunscreen, but from a professional data-driven scientific perspective, no one's going to argue that your skin isn't going to benefit from protecting your skin or using a retinoid or using a targeted treatment for your skin concern. I think those are actually kind of a given. The second part of this, though, is what about all these other niche ingredients that do have a lot of data, but maybe everybody doesn't need? And needs a strong word in skincare sometimes, but maybe not universally should it be recommended. And I actually put some ingredients that I love into this category. And I wasn't sure, again, I should put them here, put them earlier, but I think they belong here, and here's why. So I don't know if you can see this. Hopefully you can. I'll probably upload this thumbnail into that community post on YouTube and then also my other channels in the story or something, just so you can take a closer look. But here are those individual ingredients that I feel like are kind of supporting ingredients where they may have a lot of data. They may actually have a ton of benefits. They have a well-defined role. And some of these are actually really, really well-rounded ingredients, but it's not one that you put on, you look in the mirror and it's like, oh, wow, this is like a dramatic heavy lifter. This isn't the foundational ingredient that everything else is built upon. And so I actually included vitamin C here, which I'm a big vitamin C fan, actually, probably more than I used to be. in part, it's because of all of the nuance around it. Like give me an item that's very nuanced with a lot of minutia and a lot of data. I'm probably going to fall in love with it over time. And vitamin C fell into that for me, but also because it really does cover a lot of bases. There are just so many things that it does for your skin. It really does make it like a good foundational ingredient, but I don't think it lives with the hydroquinones or the tretinoin where the results are dramatic. I think it is something that's additive and supportive to complement everything else you're doing. And then niacinamide here, of course. Every time I shout out niacinamide, I say this is a supporting ingredient because I don't want you to, even though I love it, even though I think it could be extremely helpful in most people's skincare routines, this isn't something that I think is like, okay, this is going to revolutionize your world. This is going to revolutionize your skin if you're using just niacinamide. Like obviously this one is a supporting ingredient. So I put that there. And then another category here, I put antioxidants because the antioxidants, although broadly helpful with mostly the photoaging concerns, that certainly is another ingredient where the results aren't going to just blow you away. It's certainly going to be a cumulative additive benefit to complement the major heavy hitters that you're using. And then over time, it does make a difference. And there's no question about the data, I think, behind any of those three. And then also in this, probably beyond this, maybe I could have made another category, are these like individual niche ingredients, like for hyperpigmentation, tranexamic acid, kojic acid. I'm just looking at all of my products. So if I name another one, but I won't. But anyway, all these individual ingredients that you can add to your routine are copper peptides. That's a good ingredient, another well-rounded ingredient. But these things can benefit you, but it may not make your skincare or skin look like dramatically better. And here we see this like plateau phase. So I came up with all this again, just shouting, this is all made up. This is all just in my mind. But here, I think the more you add, you stop seeing those dramatic differences and start seeing kind of cumulative slow benefits where it's like incremental returns. And now what's right for everybody? Like when do you stop? That's highly personalized. It's just how much are you invested? Like what are your goals? Are you aiming for perfection? And none of us will ever hit perfection. Always we put that out there. But is that what you're really aiming for? Because then adding small, subtle ingredients, even beyond those foundational supporting ingredients like vitamin C, niacinamide, antioxidants, then taking additional steps might even get you to further. And I did have another section here. And the question with that is like, how do you get out of this plateau phase? So let's say you're using all these things. Let's say you're using every ingredient on this list with one from the targeted treatment area. And you're like, well, I'm stuck. I'm still not where I want to be. Usually this will be in the photoaging setting as well, like fine lines, wrinkles, dark spots, uneven tone, what have you, whatever. This is like, how do I get past this plateau phase? Because I'm stuck and I feel like I'm just throwing money at the wall and it's not sticking and I'm not seeing what I want to get out of this. That's where procedures come in. And that just totally disrupts this chart. It's an exponential, like logarithmic growth phase that just break past the plateau here. And it's a big investment. Like procedures are not for everybody. And there's just a huge variation in what I mean by procedures, whether I mean like filler, Botox, or even something like a laser, facelift, blepharoplasties. It's just very personalized what would be right for which person. But this is where you really can have a very dramatic result. You can kind of break past that barrier and then kind of move on. And ideally, and all of that combined really can make for some incredibly healthy skin. But even with those procedures, you still need to do this background stuff so it doesn't live alone. And that's why it lives at the top of this chart. And again, in the reel or whatever I'll post, it'll kind of show up there. So that's my deep thought for the week, I suppose. That was my I was just ruminating on that. Like I said, I was thinking through it and I really liked how that turned out. For me, it's fun to kind of live in my mind and just theorize. I love to theorize. And that's a lot of what we do here on the lives. In case you haven't joined us before, I'll kind of think out loud with the Q&As and we'll talk about some of these things. And that's where we'll go next. So I hope that was helpful for you. Hopefully explained why people, some people are very minimalistic. And while others do a lot more. And I do actually believe that's true, even though it's all theory. I do believe that you see those huge gains with those initial steps from just someone who does nothing to using a retinoid SPF and targeted treatment. I mean, that's tremendous turnaround for your skin health. And then you do get incremental improvement beyond that. So now we'll go to the Q&A, and I appreciate everyone for jumping in and spending your Saturday with me. I've talked about it before. This is one of my favorite things to do is just interact with you all. I really just enjoy the feedback. It kind of just makes this feel more like a home and community for me. And I love that. Now, before we jump in, I'm going to jump in one more housekeeping thing. We may get some time to do this today, but I'm going to do a new thing with these lives, and I'm hoping it's fun. The whole point of this is for it to be fun and educational, because I love to learn, and I assume you guys do too, since you're stuck with me. But I'm going to do this new thing. It's going to be like new, maybe you can help me with a name actually, but I'm going to go over new product releases for the month. So Skin Store is actually this is not partnered. It's not like, not paid or whatever, but they're going to help me out and give us the new products for each month. And then I'll be able to actually just have all the consolidated products with you, and we'll look at what's new, see what's good, what's going on, what I love, and then also kind of hash out some of the new studies that have come out, kind of couple what's there in the over-the-counter space, what's there in the medical community space for the skin community, and then hopefully put forward some new information every month with you. But the fun part is, one thing I found out I can do with the streaming software that I'm using now, we can actually shop together. And I was like, how fun? I mean, I think it would be fun. How fun would it be if we got to shop together? So maybe we'll have some time to do that today. We'll peruse on Skin Store and just shop together. They have their like a big anniversary sale going on right now. And then we'll get to pick out some items. They'll send that to me, and we'll kind of get to talk about next time, whatever you guys want me to buy this time. And I'm pretty open to that. If you want me to buy a lamp, by all means, let's get a lamp. If you want me to buy a shampoo, hair care product, let's do that. I don't know if they have lamps on the Skin Store, but I think that'd be a lot of fun. That way we get to try out together some of the new things that are coming out and really get an idea, because I do it a lot in the back end. Thankfully, we do have a lot of things we get to try out. But I'd like you to be a part of that as well, kind of keep up to date with that. And then the up-to-date kind of medical literature that I also review, but I kind of do that quietly in the back end. I think that would be fun. So maybe we'll do that at the end. We will see. Now, let's go through the questions. So also with this, I go through the back end. I'll go to the old questions, some of the new questions. So I jump around, but can I do that because I don't want someone who asked a question early to feel like I'll never get to it. And that way you don't feel like you constantly have to repost the same question, because I'll jump around so we can try to get to it. All right, we can start with this hard. So this question is, what's best for enlarged pores? And that is an age-old question, and one of the most difficult questions, because pores are made of two components, and one component is actually trickier than the other. The main component I think people think of is the oil glands. The oil glands kind of live in the base of the pore. So the base, think of it kind of like a cup. The surrounding portion is the structure, and at the base is kind of this sebaceous gland or oil gland. And around it lives not only normal skin, but especially on the nose, increased, let's call it stroma, like increased collagen, thickened collagen. And so even if you target the sebaceous gland, oil gland, it doesn't really completely address the structural part that also makes this enlarged opening. So you always have to, I think, treat both. So in my mind, whenever I think of treating pores, I think of it both ways. You have to treat the oil glands, which you can do that through decreasing oil production with ingredients like retinoids, niacinamide. Green tea is kind of the foundational tier 1 and then tier 2 ingredients respectively. And there are some studies that show something like azelaic acid at concentrations, normal therapeutic concentrations can decrease production. I don't know if I'd hang my hat on that, but that's also a possibility. And then conversely, the second side of that too is how do you treat the structure? So retinoids do two things. One, by increasing skin cell turnover, it also can help the structural part, or at least minimize the appearance. But also to target that too, you would also benefit from something like an exfoliating ingredient. And so that's why someone who says like salicylic acid is great for pores, it's true because it is both things. It's lipophilic, it dissolves, helps remove the oil glands. In theory, you'd think by removing the oil that fills up the pores, it might help minimize their appearance by being smaller. And then that was something Dr. Shah brought up in our pores video a long time ago. And then additionally, it also is a light exfoliant. Now, salicylic acid, like most ingredients, especially the exfoliating portion, it's very concentration dependent. So the low strength concentration salicylic acids in a cleanser, I think is like a very, very, very minimal exfoliation, but it's great for removing oil. As a leave-on product in low concentrations, it's a gentle, mild exfoliant. I know it's not that gentle of an ingredient for everybody, but it is actually pretty gentle comparatively. And then also at higher concentrations, like you'll see it in very high concentrations for warts, like 20%. And that's not something probably to use for your face, but it just goes to show you the gradient that salicylic acid has when it comes to exfoliating by concentration. Other ingredients that can be helpful, obviously, are alpha hydroxy acid, lactic acid, glycolic acid, and then other gentle ones, polyhydroxy acid, or the fruit enzyme exfoliants. Not much data for those, but they are pretty gentle. So if you have sensitive skin, that's worth a try. And then, of course, if you really want to invest in it, which might be worth it if you really want to see some pretty dramatic results, then you have to go procedurally again, like I talked about before. And it's the microneedling, great for darker skin tones as well. And then you want to go with some sort of not completely ablative laser. You can do something like fractionated CO2 where it punches holes in the skin, tightens it, or an ablative later on the ablative setting, which would also help resurface. So that's pretty much a pores video in a nutshell. That was the whole thing without just product recommendations. Let's see. Okay, so this one says, imagine not washing your face. Literally cleanses my soul like sage. I have like an open moment with you all. I was one of those kids and teenagers that didn't wash my face. And once I started doing it, I could never go back. I can't, it's life-changing. If there's any one of you who's watching and has never washed your face, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend doing it for a week because you won't be able to live without it. There's something about going to bed with clean, like fresh skin. It just makes you feel amazing. I see. Does sport make a difference on acne? Does it decrease acne? I might be missing something here, but I'm assuming sports in general are working out or exercise all in kind of that same category. I think it's a good question because a lot of athletes really struggle with acne. I think it's a combination of things. It's a combination of their lifestyle, being active, but also being busy. And so I think for a lot of people, it's hard for them to get in a good, healthy, dedicated acne routine when you are athletic. So does exercise make acne worse inherently? And I'm just going to lump it all there together with the category of exercise. No. I personally, again, theory here. This is theory. This is not science. I think exercise is probably good for acne overall through multiple different pathways. But I do think actually the sweating is kind of good for your skin as long as it's like cleansed off. I do think that being healthier overall, I actually know for a fact that that's good for your skin as well as your whole body because of the way that fat cells in general actually increase whole body inflammation. So I know that would be helpful. So I think exercise itself might actually have a positive effect on the skin and maybe for acne as well. But here's where people, and why I think a lot of athletes also struggle with acne. It's kind of, some of it's lumped into something called acne mechanica, where either through helmets or just touching or contact, you get more bacteria on the skin. That's definitely something you see. You see a lot of football players who have like a big, broad patch of acne on their foreheads because of the helmet that just sits right there on the skin constantly. It's dirty, right? It's not getting washed well after every practice or even, of course, during the events or games. So that's definitely a big part of it. And then also, too, for a lot of these people, it's kind of impractical to find a way to reset their skincare routine or have like a full wash in the middle of the day after practice. So I think part of it comes down to acne mechanica. I think part of it comes down to not being able to cleanse the skin well after you're done. But overall, exercise, I think, is a good positive thing. Can Tretinoin help milia? Can Tretinoin help milia? So what are milia? Let's start there. So milia are these little superficial cysts under the skin. They have this lining of epithelial squamous cells, right? And that's what makes them so difficult to get out. You can't just pop them because they're actually encapsulated. And so how Tretinoin might work, and it does actually help a little bit, increases skin cell turnover to help prevent trapping of milia underneath the skin, those little cysts under the skin. Now, the interesting thing about milia is we really don't have like a huge, I don't think we have a profound understanding of what causes them to come up. I really don't. We do know that they occur after things like scarring. A lot of scarring conditions, medical conditions as well, will also have milia that result as a process of the healing. And that also kind of lends to the idea of while it heals, it kind of traps these areas underneath the skin, but also it seems to just happen. And there seems to be, of course, as always, a genetic component to this as well. But by increasing skin cell turnover through something like Tretinoin, it is a good way that can help it. I do believe that just like acne, it would work better to help prevent it. But over time, it certainly can help your skin kind of not cleanse itself, but to turn over and free itself from the milia that are trapped. So it really is actually a foundational treatment for milia, but I do think it works better as prevention. Can you use a retinaldehyde serum after a benzoyl peroxide face wash? So that's a good question. And it's actually a very important question because the combination of benzoyl peroxide face washes and a retinoid in general, that whole umbrella family, is, again, a common staple foundational treatment for acne. And the answer is yes. And this really would come up in the nighttime setting, right? Because retinol, retinaldehydes, and tretinoin, all that whole line of it, unless it's micronized, is going to be sensitive to the sun. It's a nighttime ingredient. Now, the way that people make this work usually when in an acne routine is they'll use the benzoyl peroxide cleanser in the morning. They'll wash their face, rinse it off, do their other stuff. And then at nighttime, after the nighttime wash, they'll do something like a gentle cleanser and then use their tretinoin or retinoid for their acne. And then they're completely separated by space and time. And you don't have to worry about it because benzoyl peroxide can oxidize and inactivate retinol and tretinoin if it comes in contact with it. So that's one way to do it. Now, could you use a benzoyl peroxide cleanser at night and then your retinoid afterwards? I think yes. The whole thing is you just have to make sure you rinse off the benzoyl peroxide. And how would you know if you're rinsing the benzoyl peroxide off completely? You'd know because if you're not and you're drying your face with a dark towel, it would bleach it. So you can actually kind of probably gauge how effectively you are washing off or rinsing off your benzoyl peroxide cleanser. If you want to test it out, just grab a dark towel, ideally one you don't love, start wiping your face after you've rinsed it, and let's just see how much is left because it will bleach that towel. And if you've rinsed it off thoroughly in theory, you could wait a little bit and then also use your retinol, tretinoin. Other ways to get around this though, again, we're talking about that nighttime routine. If you are imperfectly rinsing, which I'm sure all of us do, you can use a micronized tretinoin or you can use something like adapalene, which again is resistant to that oxidation from benzoyl peroxide. And you'll even find adapalene combined with benzoyl peroxide in a treatment, epiduo. Now, the reason I keep adding things like adapalene and tretinoin to this statement is because retinol and retinaldehyde I think are really, really, really weak when it comes to treating acne. And again, with benzoyl peroxide, that's like the only space you're using that ingredient. So in general, I'd say retinol and retinaldehyde probably shouldn't even be in that conversation. But anyway, that's the whole summation of how you can put that together and how that goes. This is an interesting one and kind of an important one too. Which medicine is good for vitiligo, white patches on the face? I'm using a Melgain lotion for 2 years, but not much improvement. I'm not sure what Melgain lotion is. Let me just take a look at what that is. If this is a brand prescription, I'm not familiar with it. Let's see. Melgain lotion. That's over the counter. I'm going to have to look into that one. I actually don't know much about this. But it's not working for you, so it's maybe not that good. But yeah, I'll look into that a little more later. Again, as always on lives, I'm happy to expose what I don't know because I'm always learning just like everybody else. But vitiligo, let's take one step back. As always, what is vitiligo? This is a true autoimmune condition where a person's immune system notices the melanocytes or pigment-making cells that live in the basement membrane, and it attacks them and kills them. And that's why with vitiligo, you get what we call depigmentation, where there's truly no pigment left in the skin in the affected areas, as opposed to hypopigmentation, which is light or lighter skin color that can occur like after inflammation. Now, because this is a problem of the immune system being hyperactive, most of the treatments have historically tried to modulate that and try to reset that inflammation that's from the body's immune system, including light therapy. There are a lot of different treatment options for this, and for a lot of the prescription ones, a lot of them are just simple, targeted, topical, broad anti-inflammatories. This is really a condition where we need to elucidate the treatment pathway better for it. And so I'm separating it in my mind right now as I'm kind of talking and rambling. I've got it broadly characterized in a couple different categories. The first are just general things that help broadly with with inflammation. And unfortunately, the prescription ingredients that are involved with inflammation are just worlds more effective than the over-the-counter options ones. And so, because we know the ingredients, let's say even coconut oil, like that decreases inflammation. There are tons of studies showing that, and you'll probably find that for most of these plant-based ingredients, they are anti-inflammatory, but it's a matter of how much. And so when you do enter the prescription world where you have things like topical steroids, which aren't really good for a long-term problem at all, or Topical tacrolimus, which is newer on the field, and things like that aren't steroids, but are broadly anti-inflammatory. And those have a better space for this. But even that broad anti-inflammatory effect isn't particularly helpful for vitiligo, to be honest. There's some areas of the body that respond better than others. Hands are particularly difficult. Face can be really difficult. And so we're still hoping for that magic bullet. And all of that was to lead into this one thing. And this is a new class of ingredients or medications called JAK inhibitors. JAK inhibitors hold a lot of promise because for things like vitiligo or alopecia areata, that autoimmune condition where your body attacks the hair instead of the pigment-making cells, the results can be pretty amazing. Now, the use of this medication ingredient Systemically is something you have to talk to your doctor about, because it's not the safety, up to my opinion, the safety profile is not up to par with a lot of the other medications we have, like for something like psoriasis or eczema. And so this is like a very, 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 very personalized, very decision. However, there is a prescription topical version of a JAK inhibitor now. I've tried it out myself on some patients. Again, because it's topical, the safety is likely worlds better than the systemic form. I think it's a very safe ingredient topically. It does still carry some of the warnings from the oral form of the medication, which is a weird thing to do, by the way. You get a topical medication and they extrapolate the safety from the oral medication, even though the absorption is minimal. Ooh, that's actually a rabbit trail I'm going to go down next. But anyway, so this topical version of it might be pretty safe. I've had decent results with it. Unfortunately, it's not like as robust as the oral version of it. But I was actually talking to some doctors this week about it, and they have had pretty good results from it. I think Opzelura is the name, Opzlura. So I would have a conversation with your dermatologist about that one. Just open the conversation, see if it's the right fit for you. Topically, again, I think it's a good option to at least explore. And I'm hoping we get worlds of new different treatments for vitiligo, the better we understand it. I really do. Here's the rabbit trail for you. So there's an idea of, this isn't really viral anymore. It was viral at one point, like, can depression come from topical tretinoin? And this does come up in the real world. And, people see it online, people see it in social media. And I think it's I understand the extrapolation there, but I did a deep dive, and I'll make like a short video on this too, because I love my little deep dives on some of these studies behind not only oral vitamin A and depression, which the bulk of the medical literature shows that the association is pretty weak. In fact, a lot of the newer studies show that in general, oral vitamin A in people with severe acne does help depression. I'm not saying that happens for everyone. It certainly could make it worse in theory, possibly, but it does probably help. But the reason I went down that train of thought is because the absorption, like, there's actually a really nice study done, I think it was in 1997, about topical tretinoin, 1997, but the absorption from a topical application is extremely small. So small, let's say you're using tretinoin. Let's say you're using tretinoin cream for your acne. So small, in fact, that it is indistinguishable from our body's native endogenous levels of retinoic acid that we create. So the idea that topical tretinoin could worsen depression or make that worse, I think that the science is very firmly against that, based off of what we know about the ingredient itself at high doses, but then definitely based off of the absorption of it. It's actually pretty well studied. But it actually makes the whole question of safety in pregnancy kind of an interesting topic. And there's no way we're ever going to budge on that, because anything that could be harmful orally, topically, you do absorb a little bit of it. But we really do absorb just a very small fraction of it, and some more than others. I think tazarotene carries a black box warning for that. So I think we absorb that a bit better. So there was another thing I was going down over the last week. And it's always a good conversation to have. But let me skip around a little bit. Ooh, that's tough. Oh, well, that was it. So that was kind of to my point. This question is, why can't you use tretinoin topically while pregnant? What have the studies shown it does? So oral vitamin A taken while pregnant is highly teratogenic, like horribly. Unfortunately, in the history of the world, that's something we found out reactively. And because of that, we know that it's not safe in high doses in pregnancy, and you do and can absorb some of it topically. Although, like I just talked about, it's different for every ingredient. There are studies for each ingredient, how they're absorbed differently. But you can absorb it topically. And so in theory, some of it could get to the baby, and that is where the problem lies. And that's why virtually nobody that I know of would recommend continuing a topical vitamin A during pregnancy. That's why. This is an interesting question too. So this is, how can I use This is, can I use an alpha hydroxy, beta hydroxy, polyhydroxy acid product after washing my face with a CeraVe SA cleanser? So basically, let me sum this up. The person's using a salicylic acid cleanser, and they're wanting to use another combination acid product in their routine. And this is a debatable answer. I would love to know your thoughts on this, because I talked about, again already, mostly what you put on your face in the cleanser rinses off. And whether it's a beta hydroxy acid or salicylic acid or glycolic acid in a cleanser, I don't think that counts for your dedicated exfoliating ingredient, if that's what you're using it for. So for a person who's doing salicylic acid, glycolic acid washes, I personally think you would still exfoliate a couple times a week with a dedicated exfoliating ingredient. Now, salicylic acid is a little bit different because it has a great role with oil control. And I think topically, because of its great absorption, even with minimal contact time, because of how lipophilic it is, that it absorbs into fat, I think in a cleanser, it satisfies its role. So speaking purely about salicylic acid, if you're rinsing it off, washing it off with a cleanser, I don't think you necessarily need to duplicate that with a spot treatment with salicylic acid, but it sounds with that combination product afterwards, you're probably using that more for its exfoliating purposes. So I think it makes sense to use both. The question really is though, why are you using that salicylic acid cleanser to begin with? Because maybe a different type of cleanser would be better suited if you're going to use a dedicated product with multiple acids in it. So that's just me thinking real time with you. But that's just my thoughts on that. Duplicating ingredients is always kind of a problem in skincare and usually unnecessary. This is another one too. Man, there's a lot of like controversial little things in here. So does using a retinol on the face damage meibomian glands of the eyes? So I've seen a few people put up videos of this. I did a video, I don't even know, a year ago on this, maybe. Deep dive this. The answer in theory is yes. So because of the way that retinoids do work in oil glands, and yes, we do have oil glands in around the eyes, even named ones. This is another thing that people are a little confused about. It could, I think, contribute to dry eyes. Now, there is a study out there showing that like the majority of people who used it had dry eyes, which I think is interesting. And this is the case with a lot of studies. Like, for example, another study is a study where vitamin E, and I mentioned this like one of our first videos ever, is there's a study showing vitamin E use after surgery. A third of people developed an allergic reaction to it. I'm like, that seems unreasonable. That just doesn't match up with what I see in real life ever. Like, I know vitamin E can now be allergenic. In this case, I know retinol can in theory cause dry eyes, but I definitely don't see this real life application that matches that one study. And again, that's a really common problem with studies, is you can find a study to probably support every single argument. But the question is, what does the bulk of the literature show? Or for a professional who's seeing 1,000 people, 1,000 people a month? I don't know. What does your experience tell you? And for me, I think, yes, it's in theory possible, something to be aware of if you're using retinols close to the eye. It wouldn't stop me from using one though. It's something I'd say, okay, let's say you do have, because like the Olay 24 Regenerist, one of my favorite eye creams out there because it's budget friendly, has a lot of great ingredients, but it has retinol in it. I think it's a great cream for around the eyes. But for someone who's experiencing dry eyes, just be aware that it's possible, and I would stop it after that. That's kind of my thought on that. Again, there's one study that I think really overstates it, but we don't have enough data really to support that that's not the case either. Here's another one. Can you use skin brightener after niacinamide serum? Yes. So niacinamide, one of my favorite ingredients because it's so dang well-rounded. It's a supporting ingredient. So I'd highly recommend using something that has niacinamide in it and other ingredients in it. Or if you're using a dedicated niacinamide product, then yes, combine it with other ingredients and products that also treat dark spots. So yes, and niacinamide mixes really well too, which is another reason I love it, because it's jack of all trade ingredients. And plus, like, what can't you mix it with? I know there's some controversy, but it's not because of the niacinamide. The idea that it gets changed and makes you flush more easily, it really doesn't seem to live out in real world and real life situations. It just plays so well with others. The other question I just saw above it, let's see here. Just tuned in. Sorry, has anyone asked this already? But if not, can you use vitamin C along with Retin-A or Tretinoin? And the answer there is yes. These pair very well. And again, this is kind of one of those things that most people will space out in... I used that word. I can't say it again. They will put apart in space and time. I wanted to say space and time, like they separate it in space and time. So in the morning, they'll cleanse, use their vitamin C as that foundational morning antioxidant, helps with collagen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then at night, they'll combine it with the tretinoin. And again, it just both have such complementary skill sets. They just make sense in any photoaging, anti-aging routine. And there's like, again, a very foundational combination to use. A major caveat here, and this is probably the only place I'll say it, but it should be said at probably every video we ever do, is irritation. Pretty much any dark spot, acne treatment regimen is going to have multiple irritating ingredients of it. So listen to your skin. I mean, everybody knows this intuitively. If you're getting too much irritation with that combination, back off of what you're doing and tailor it towards your skin. So That's the only time I'll say it because it is true. um, let's see here. That's an interesting question. Salicylic acid, 3% is safe. Question mark. I thought it was an exclamation question mark, just question mark. So I guess would be your safety concerns with salicylic acid? So it couldn't be the concentration there, because it's very common to have 2% concentrations in just like the very most gentle, topical, mild exfoliating products out there. The only thing you might be concerned about is absorption, called salicylism. And you can, of course, get salicylic acid toxicity from a mass absorption through the skin. It's a very interesting metabolic phenomenon, by the way. Like Dr. Sean and I never talk about, he does more than I do, but we rarely talk about general medicine and metabolic things in general. But like, it's one of the most fascinating things ever. It causes like this mixed metabolic alkalosis, respiratory acidosis. Is that right? Metabolic acidosis, respiratory alkalosis pattern on the ABG. It's so interesting the way that salicylism actually causes. Okay, let me just tell you. I never get to talk about this, so let me just tell you. So if you take too much salicylic acid in whatever form, aspirin, whatever, don't do this. It's very bad. I can't believe I feel like I need to say that, but it actually makes you breathe faster. Initially, it actually stimulates your brain to make you breathe faster, which causes what we call a respiratory alkalosis, because you're breathing off too much carbon dioxide, and so your body becomes slightly alkalotic and it compensates through the kidneys. Then later, the actual metabolic pathway, and it uncouples the electron transport chain in the kidneys, and then you get this like metabolic acidosis. And again, I talked about it creates this unique phenomenon on paper with your metabolic acid-based pathway. All right, I'm done. Sorry, I never get to talk about that stuff. That gets me so excited. I love details and science. We're done with that. Is 3% safe? I'll just stuff this. Yes, probably safe. At the concentration, it's a low concentration. We use much higher concentrations in the treatment of warts. You'll even see combinations through something like skin medicinals where you'll have like a 50%, 55% salicylic acid just for some extreme exfoliation. That's a spot treatment. One of the most important things though would be body surface area. Like how much are you using? Because if you have a ton of open, damaged, broken skin and you're putting a ton of salicylic acid on it, guess what? You're absorbing it. That's probably not safe. But for everyday routine, regular use of salicylic acid at that low concentration, yes, it's safe. So, let's see. What's another question? Ooh, okay. This is tough too. So we talked about pores, and this is like a loosely related thought. I just found out I have sebaceous hyperplasia. What is the best way to prevent this from going forward? So sebaceous hyperplasia and open pores are different. Sebaceous hyperplasia, I would say, is more sebaceous gland than stroma. I almost want to say pores the other way around. It's more supporting surrounding stroma than sebaceous gland. And so to treat or prevent this from getting worse, to treat it, one of the most effective ways is electrodesiccation. This is where your doctor or dermatologist would take a little bit of some people like refer to it as an electric needle. It's not actually a needle. It's just like a little bit of it jumps a little bit of electrical spark or electrodesiccation, where a little bit of electricity generates heat and you kind of scrape them off very gently, very low setting, and it can really work beautifully. It's a cosmetic treatment, so you kind of have to go out of your way to, one, ask for it, make sure your dermatologist know that you want them treated, not just that they're benign. But then two, it's usually just a cosmetic thing, and insurances won't cover that, of course. But that can be very effective if you just have if a person just has a few. Now, topical things that you might be able to use is going to be similar to the oil control stuff we talked about for pores, though. It's really actually going to be probably the same treatment, because you're going to want to try to target those oils. The foundational thing is going to be a topical tretinoin. That, of course, is going to be the most effective for oil control, also help with skin cell turnover. And then also you can use other exfoliating ingredients as well to help that. So that would be kind of the foundational thing there as well. Does Centella asiatica oil prevent or decrease scarring from acne or stretch marks? I love Centella asiatica. This is that green tea extract. There are different compounds you can actually pull from these teas. This is one of my other favorite deep dives, was the green tea, black tea, purple tea kind of literature. There's a lot to it. But I will say that Centella asiatica has a lot of benefits, tremendous upside. It just is another ingredient that plays well with everything. But it's a supporting ingredient. So will it decrease scarring from acne or stretch marks? I would say no. I think it really just helps other ingredients function well. Again, green tea is amazing for things like oil control, maybe a study or two. Actually, I think there's at least two small randomized controlled trials showing that it can even help with blocking DHT and helping with hair loss. So another extrapolation for it. I know caffeine for sure. Don't hold me to that one. I might have to go back and look. But just a great ingredient, but it's not strong enough, and it doesn't have like the right profile to really minimize scarring from acne or stretch marks. It's not prolific in that way. So here's, okay. So can I mix creams with retinol and salicylic acid? Can I mix creams with retinol and salicylic acid? This gets into the mixing things, So we've talked about this before. We occasionally recommend mixing. Now, it's an obvious trade-off. I think we got a lot of flack, and some people do, which understandably, like you are knowingly diluting an ingredient and messing with the formulation of both when you mix two things together. So you're sacrificing efficacy, but you should be a purpose. If you're sacrificing efficacy, it should be for tolerability if you're going to mix it with a cream, right? And so if done deliberately, there's a reason. I think it's an acceptable thing to do. Now, retinol and salicylic acid creams, not only are you questioning, does the retinol and salicylic acid, do those play well together? Which they might. Like, it depends on the pH. Both of those do okay. Retinol functions at a little less acidic pH optimally than salicylic acid, which is why salicylic acid actually plays a little better with vitamin C. The L'Oreal Paris one, that actually kind of makes sense based off of the pHs, although they also made it a more neutral pH, which is just mind-blowing in and of itself. But generally, that would play a little better together than salicylic acid and retinoids, I think. And then that's the one thing. The two ingredients, can they mix? Probably. I don't really think they're going to completely inactivate each other. The second thing, though, is like product to product. What happens with the formulation and stability? Who knows? Just know that anytime you mix products, that it's going to decrease the efficacy a little bit. I think that's a safe assumption. Even with sunscreens. I mean, that was a big thing. I don't remember, like a couple years ago. They're like, don't mix sunscreens. And it's true. I mean, mixing sunscreens decreases the stability of both. And that's something in even the more the acute setting, you really are banking on the protection from it. So I wouldn't mix sunscreens. I would actually be much more hesitant to mix a sunscreen than I would a skincare product. Let's see. Let's jump back. So how can you add vitamin C to your daily routine? This is another thing I've theorized about that's really not... I'm sorry, just looking at other questions too, reading and talking. So how do you add vitamin C to a skincare routine, right? So the foundational way to do it is it's an antioxidant. One of its main purposes is that it's a potent antioxidant when combined with other things like vitamin E and ferulic acid especially. But antioxidants in general probably promote each other. Vitamin E has this nice mutual synergistic relationship with vitamin C. So because it's a protectant, probably first and foremost, it would be used in the morning, right? So after you cleanse your face, then comes vitamin C, serum product, whatever you want to use. And then after that, just pretending you're minimalistic, then comes your sunscreen. And that's antioxidant component is going to complement the sunscreen and how it protects your skin throughout the day. So that's the classic way to use it. You can use vitamin C twice a day. There's definitely been studies, and it only certainly makes sense that way as well. Now here's the theory. This is just theory. Just made this up a long time ago. What happens if you use vitamin C at night? Like, what happens? Now, why does it matter? What's the main reason vitamin C gets broken down and inactivated? It's by light, UV light, right? So if you're using it at night, in theory, it's not going to be broken down nearly as readily as it would be in the day. And therefore, in my mind, I'm like, well, vitamin C should probably, if you used it at night, it would be more active longer. And so this is all made up. There's no science to back this, at least no data, clinical studies to back this up. But I'm like, well, if you use vitamin C in the morning, you're going to maximize the protectant benefits as it protects you throughout the day. If you use it at night, you're probably going to maximize the collagen benefits and skin brightening benefits of it, because it's not going to be broken down like it would if you were doing it during the day. Completely theory. That's another way to incorporate it, but you really can't go wrong with that in the ingredient. Morning is ideal, optimal. What happens if you use it at night? Obviously still works. So let's see. Oh, this is interesting. So, I wish Dr. Shah was here for this. I would love to. So I think the funnest thing about our channel, honestly, is the fact that there's two of us. I've said it before. One of my favorite things is doing this with Dr. Shah. It's just like, I always say this too, like joy is magnified when shared. But one of the things I'd love is that we disagree on certain things, or we have differing opinions. It's just because we learn from each other, right? We rebound as each other, we change each other as we grow together. And this one is about denatured alcohol, which Dr. Shah hates. And I mean, reasonably so in a sense. It's irritating. Does it serve much of a purpose? It does have a couple of different purposes in your ingredients. So it's not like it's not doing anything in there. It's actually So I was going to say, is it a step up from fragrance? I mean, fragrance, if you're not allergic to fragrance, by all means, I like things that smell good too. But no, it's an allergen and energen. Denatured alcohol, no, it can be irritating, but it does have a functional purpose, and it even might actually accelerate some of the ingredients getting absorbed into the skin, which can make them more effective. So it's functional. Now the question is alcohol denatured in sunscreen fine to use long-term, because the one from Neutrogena has it in it? Two things to this, the acute and the long-term. So short-term and long-term, right? The short-term is it's irritating. So it can, in theory, break down your skin barrier. There was a product I have. Oh, what was it? It was a vitamin C product. I don't remember which brand. It doesn't matter anyway, but alcohol denatured was super high in it. And for some reason, some products with high alcohol denatured don't bother my skin. This one, though, more than anything else, I felt every bit of it. And so it definitely can be irritating, and just know that. And if you get irritation from a product and you're wondering why, that's one of the ingredients that can be problematic. So definitely can skip it. There are other alternatives you can use in a product to kind of serve the same purpose. That's the short term. If it irritates you, don't use it. If it doesn't irritate you, by all means, it's acceptable, I'd say. The second part of it is the long term, which was more to the heart of the question. And the question, so I'm theorizing in my mind now, okay, what long-term consequences would you be concerned about? And I really don't see any. So I think long-term, you're not absorbing much of it. The concentration is really low to begin with. I'm not really worried about any long-term consequences from using something with denatured alcohol in it. So let's see what else we got. Someone said they're going to create an emoji collection out of today's video. That's pretty funny. Let's see. Oh, okay. This is interesting. So this is actually very, very difficult. Oof. Over-the-counter medicines for severe eczema. This is really tough. And let's go back and talk about why. In the room when I talk to patients, and if they have new eczema, I try to always explain that it's not just itchy skin. It's actually two things. Eczema, assuming it's atopic dermatitis, has a problem with inflammation in the skin barrier. There's a specific arm of your immune system, mediated by Th2 cells, that with eczema or atopic dermatitis are always active. So there's always a smoldering inflammation that's just ready, raring to go. And that's why it takes very little from life, skin insults, whatever, to trigger eczema flares and to make it worse. That's the whole inflammation side. And there's the skin barrier side, where we know some of the defects like filaggrin, where they have mutations and their skin barrier doesn't work. So inflammation and skin barrier. Over-the-counter skin barrier products are robust. They are great. They are exceptional. That's where the over-the-counter space really shines. And this is where moisturizers come in. You're like, well, I have eczema. Moisturizers don't really do a lot. And that's because they really are for maintenance and the skin barrier. They don't do a whole lot for the inflammatory side of it. And so I'll throw out some products that I like really good over the counter for the skin barrier side, because that's where I can really actually give a little bit more valuable information. If you want a plant-based ingredient, coconut oil has some of the best studies. I think it is still the best studied plant-based ingredient in the setting of the broken skin barrier, sensitive skin eczema. And then oats would be out there. Aveeno has a really nice oat line. They have a thinner facial moisturizer. They also have a balm. This is kind of a new thing you're seeing this year. Murad has the same thing, cleansing oil moisturizer and a balm. Both are super gentle, great moisturizers. CeraVe made its mark actually in this space because of its doubling down on ceramides and multiple different types of ceramides, because ceramides are also lower in the skin for people with eczema or atopic dermatitis. And so that replaces something that the skin is deficient in. And that's why CeraVe really has a good presence in the eczema atopic space. And with that one, of course, you're getting like a large volume for your money. It's not like a facial moisturizer. It's a body moisturizer that you can also use on your face. That can be very helpful. I would say stay away from the lotions if you have eczema or atopic dermatitis, though. I do believe the vehicle matters. And so the creams or if you're a person who can like ointments, those would be more effective. I love the La Roche-Posay triple moisturizing cream. In fact, I am obsessed with it. It has such a nice moisturizing film. I think their new line too, since they removed they changed the names. Lord help them so much. But there was Lipicar AP Balm Plus, and now it's the triple moisturizing cream, I believe. But I think they added ceramides into their new formulation, so that also can help in that space. Great moisturizer as well. That's a skin barrier. The other part is the inflammation. You have a lot of studies showing that inflammation, these over-the-counter ingredients, plant-based ingredients, can be anti-inflammatory. But I talked about it already. The problem is efficacy and like ceiling of effectiveness. Very little over-the-counter can help with eczema and the inflammation of it in a way that's strong enough. So the long and short, the long of that now at this point, if you use a moisturizer consistently, regularly, after you are damp, getting out of the shower, skin's still damp, you apply a thick moisturizer, lock in that moisture, you're helping your skin bear out a lot. Like that's a huge part. That might be enough for maintenance and to keep it under control. But if it's not, you really have to see a doctor, a dermatologist, to find something topically, or now with, especially when Dupixent came around, some of these new novel systemic treatments for the that really target the inflammation of eczema. Safety and effectiveness is insane with those. I mean, for me, it's all relative. It's like 10 years ago to now. Thankfully, eczema is another condition that's really been revolutionized by our understanding of the inflammatory pathway. And I only hope it continues getting better from there, but they're really effective things now. So that's that. Let's see what else we have. Potency. Glycolic acid and retinol together. This is that combination, like which one is better? Well, not better. Could you use glycolic acid and retinoids? The answer is, in theory, yes. It's just like, what can your skin tolerate? Which is why, because both are irritating, both have extremely effective with their respective roles. But again, this is why Dr. Shaw, I think he talks about how he'll use a retinoid, 5 days a week and exfoliate on the weekends or something to that effect. It's like a 3-day on retinoid, 1 day off, kind of like skin cycling. But it's just those things, you just take a break from the retinoid, exfoliate as your skin tolerates, but definitely a complementary duo. Most people probably can't tolerate a retinoid and glycolic acid in their skincare in the same night, but there are ingredients that bring them together, like the Skin Better Science Alpha Ret combines both. If your skin and a lot of those products, when they do combine them, they're formulated in a way to help with tolerability, and it's an extremely effective duo. But talking again, it's like the irritation potential makes it prohibitive for a lot of them. Let's see. That's a tough question. Let's see. How do I exfoliate sensitive, mature skin prone to redness? So this is like a 3-parter. So I sometimes engage in it. I'm like, that's a difficult question to answer. Let me just think out loud as I do this. And this is one of those. So trying to organize it in my mind. So first you have mature skin. Like, why does that matter? Well, mature skin, as we get older, I talked about it, you make less natural moisturizing factors. The skin turns over more slowly. So you get a little bit more retention, hyperkeratosis, which makes exfoliating ideal for older people. Like, the older you get, the more benefits you're going to have from exfoliating. I'm not actually sold on the idea that very young people need to exfoliate. Not that they can't benefit from it, but like definitely as you get older, it's more beneficial and it makes more sense. So that's that. Yeah, mature skin, I think it's a perfect prime time to exfoliate. The sensitive skin that's prone to redness. So the way that you kind of step up with exfoliators, you have your, I'm trying to think, polyhydroxy acids and those fruit enzymes are kind of towards the same level of minimal irritation. I think I think polyhydroxy acids have a little bit more evidence, but not by a whole lot. There's not an overwhelming body of evidence for polyhydroxy acids like gluconolactone, which is the best researched probably, or the plant-based enzymes for exfoliating, but they're certainly the most gentle. I think they're worth exploring if someone can't tolerate the other ones. Moving up, you have something, this is actually a nice one. So moving up in gentleness, let's actually say urea. Like I've talked about it a lot. I love this ingredient because it's multi-purpose. So 40% urea is very strongly exfoliating. A 10% urea is more commonly used for the face, and that exfoliates a little bit, plus it moisturizes. That's a nice way you could actually exfoliate too, with like a non-traditional exfoliator. From there, you can go into something like lactic acid, which again has a dual purpose of exfoliating and moisturizing. And then glycolic acid has probably the biggest upside, but the kicker with glycolic and all of these alpha hydroxy acids is it's more than just the name on the bottle. Like the pH and concentration matter tremendously. So if it says glycolic acid, it may not be the same as the glycolic acid in the next product. They are very different. And that's actually kind of hard to quantify because a lot of glycolic acid products don't have a concentration on them. And so that's makes it difficult to figure out how they actually work. Let's see here. Another question. Oh, this is actually a real life point that I think is very discouraging for people. So this one says, my dermatologist never gets detailed and technical. How do I bring it up to him? And I think I've shared my frustrations a little bit with and I'm sure every doctor has it with the medical system in general, because we live in an efficiency-based model where most doctors and dermatologists and providers in general now are employees. And the more middlemen you get in the process, the more time crunched you are, and the more, I don't want to say like production is demanded of you, because I hate that medicine has kind of come to that. I really do. But that's why I love this. Like, but all that was to say, like, we could never have this conversation in the office. This would never happen. I mean, I try to. I really do. I try to go into detail to help make sure people understand why we're doing things and not just like do this. But the time constraints in real life are just so much, and no one could ever go into the depth that we get to here, which is why I'm doing this, right? Like, this is Saturday. But I love doing this. We get to have these deep conversations about the why that just the constraints of real life don't allow for. So you can definitely bring it up to them and even just ask like, hey, why are we doing this? Like, is there something in particular that you want to know or questioning? But yeah, you can never have a wonderful, thorough conversation, it seems these days, in the actual real world, where which is a huge problem in my mind. In fact, so I'm also a Mohs surgeon, and so I do operate on high-risk skin cancers, on high-risk areas. But the thing but people are awake while I do it. And the beautiful thing about that is I get to know these people. Like, we're spending an hour of time together while I'm operating on them, fixing whatever, taking out skin cancer, repairing a large defect. But all that time we spend together, I get to know them. And that's such a rarity in medicine. But that just makes me fall in love with that side of it even more. Let's see here. What time is it? 2:30. That's good. We're doing okay. Let's see. Oh, layering. Did I see something on layering? Yeah, somewhere here. Because I saw a response to it, but oh, that's an interesting point too. Okay, so we'll go here and then there. So layering, let's just talk about layering in general. Is there a lot of science to it? No, and that's because there's too many variables. So layering in general is the whole idea of what you put on the skin first after cleansing. Cleansing is like the given first step, obviously. So after cleansing, what comes next? And generally, like Anna said in the comments, it goes from thinnest to thickest. And the whole idea and premise behind that thought is absorption. So if you put on like the thickest, creamiest CeraVe healing ointment first, you're creating a pretty big barrier from anything else to actually get into the skin and work. So you can go with, in general, the idea that you put your thinnest products on first, thinnest, most watery-based products on first, and maximize their absorption before moving on to the next step, because you probably won't have as much of a barrier for the next thing in line to get through. That's the major way to do it. That's a general rule of thumb. Things will work great if you live by that. That's fine. Now, my whole thing is like, there are no rules when it comes to layering. This is all just pretend theory anyway, because the absorption for each ingredient is different. The absorption based off of each formulation is different. And we deliberately make exceptions to these things. Like vitamin C is an ingredient you might want to prioritize first because it interacts with so many things. It's so finicky, especially if you're using L-ascorbic acid. You might want to jump that one ahead. But then you're like, oh, wait, what about vitamin C and hyaluronic acid if you're using a dedicated HA serum, which you don't have to. I like them personally. I just like them. I think they're refreshing, but you don't have to. But if you're doing those two, then which one goes on first? Most people would say the HA serum to maximize its love of water and the ability to put it on damp skin, maximize those hygroscopic benefits, and then put on your vitamin C. And that's probably great. It's not going to probably hamper the vitamin C much at all. But there's another exception to the rule where there's like a finicky ingredient. And then you also have the exception we talked about before, mixing with moisturizers, where you might actually add a moisturizer earlier than an active ingredient, moisturizer than retinoid, to offset irritation. And so there are a ton of exceptions to this rule, which I love exceptions in case you haven't noticed, like the whole adapalene being photostable. It's one of my favorite exceptions out there, and the micronized tretinoin in the same way. But this, like everything else, is very personalized. In general, thinnest to thickest, but play with it and then kind of maximize your own routine. The next one was thoughts on tea tree oil for acne. This is another one. I love the debate. I like catching flack from Dr. Shah for some of the things I like. I think it's a mutual, enjoyable discourse. But tea tree oil is one of those plant-based ingredients that has a lot of evidence. And because of that, I think it has a functional space in skincare. Downsides, it's allergenic and it can be irritating. It's kind of, I feel like it's an astringent. I don't know why. I just do feel like tea tree oil is kind of an astringent product. I'm not sure if that's actually defined at all, but it does have a functional purpose. It's been studied pretty extensively. And so topically, I know it can have a role for dandruff. It can have a role for acne. Most of its benefits stem from its ability to be antimicrobial and then also modulate inflammation a bit. And so it works for those types of conditions. So dandruff and acne are the places it lives best. Where would I put them in order of like greatness? They're like tier, it's probably tier 3, 4, like retinoid, other acne ingredients than tea tree oil. It can be beneficial. I would definitely use it. It's something I grew up on. It's something I grew up on, actually thought it was trash, then learned more about it and thought, well, you know what? It actually has a role. So it has a place. If you want to use it for acne, that's fine. I wouldn't substitute a different ingredient for it unless you have to. Also another ingredient that I think works as a rinse off product, like a cleanser or dandruff, or in a shampoo, I mean. This one says, I have red acne scars. Will it fade away on its own? Typically. So that's post-inflammatory erythema. The best way to get that is, make sure the acne is treated and under control. Once that's the case, then the redness will eventually fade away. It's actually more stubborn than the post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, I think, for some people, because it doesn't respond as well to treatments. Like allegedly, azelaic acid and retinoids can help with the post-inflammatory erythema. That's really all you have to offer, other than lasers, which doesn't respond as well for like the diffuse kind of redness as opposed to a dilated blood vessel. But that's really what you could use for post-inflammatory erythema. Does it work for everybody? Not really. And it will go away on its own as long as the underlying cause is resolved there. I'm checking out my battery. I'm running low. I'm like, probably have like 5 to 10 minutes left here. So this one, that's interesting. This one says, well, what are your thoughts on tacrolimus? And then hand pink waving. I'm not sure the emojis are coming through that y'all are using. So tacrolimus, Protopic is the brand name. I mentioned this before earlier in this setting of eczema. It's a topical anti-inflammatory that's not a steroid. That's probably the best place to start with it. And it's broadly effective. It's like a broad anti-inflammatory. The reason that it has a lot of utility and can be very helpful is it's like one of the very, very few non-steroid topical anti-inflammatories we have. This is a space we desperately need more options for, like desperately. Topical tacrolimus, I think it only comes in an ointment, which is another thing. It'd be nice if there's a cream base. I don't mind it in ointment, but I know a lot of people just hate that feeling. So it has its shortcomings. The effectiveness, we'll go effectiveness and then overall safety. Effectiveness is modest. I don't think it's even quite as effective as a mid-strength steroid. Again, just purely speaking of it in terms of efficacy. But it's what we got, and it's probably a better, well, actually, it's got to be a better long-term option than topical steroids, especially in these chronic settings for chronic inflammatory conditions. So it has a place. We, in the dermatology space, use it quite a bit because of that. And the safety seems good. Definitely the biggest downside of tacrolimus is that it's irritating. That is a very problematic thing. So on damaged, broken skin, it can be very irritating. That doesn't happen for most people, but for some people it does. And that's like the usual limiting factor for it. I think I talked about this too. They've extrapolated a lot of the safety warnings on the box for its systemic use. And systemically, the dose is insanely higher. And it's used as actually a transplant medication to prevent rejection, because again, it's globally is an anti-inflammatory, decreases the immune system. Topically, the idea is that it just works locally. And it's in my mind, it's completely different topically versus systemic. And it's the same thing as tea tree oil. Like the idea that is an ingredient safe or not completely doesn't exist. Tea tree oil is a perfect example because systemically it's toxic. Topically, it's irritating. It's a completely different animal based off of the safety. And I think tacrolimus is the same way. But in general, functionally, it functions as a non-steroid anti-inflammatory, which makes it better for long-term use. But boy, do we need more of those. I really hope that comes through. Oh, is this? We're about to get into rosacea here. We're toast. Rosacea is another one of my love childs. I love rosacea because of the nuance. Here, I'm going to see if I have a charger for my computer real quick. One sec. Oh, man. Okay, that wasn't so bad. So rosacea. Where to start? This is a video I desperately want to redo, if only to talk about it again. Our last video was very thorough. But this question is, should people with rosacea not use any type of vitamin A, retinol, retinoic acid, tretinoin, whatever, triferatin, tazarotene, any of them? And if not, in my opinion, why not? So rosacea has 4 types. We talked about this before, but they all behave very differently and they're all treated very differently, which makes it very difficult to put someone with rosacea into like a box of one or the other because there's so much overlap, but they all behave so differently and everyone with rosacea skin reacts differently. So to say that no one with rosacea can use a vitamin A, it's certainly not true. For someone who has the erythematotelangiectatic flushing, the vascular flushing type rosacea, it might be true. I think I've talked about this before. My wife has really sensitive skin and has that type of rosacea, and that matches up with my experience in the clinic and in the real world, is that people who have that type of rosacea have some of the most sensitive skin out there. It's sometimes on par with like the eczema, atopic dermatitis sensitivity, and it makes using an ingredient like retinoic acid or tretinoin or any of the retinoids like very difficult. And it's so frustrating because along with the vessel rosacea is this acne rosacea where you get acne-like pustules and pimples. And that responds so well to these topical vitamin A derivatives. It's like, but you can't use it because of the sensitive skin. So it's not like you can't use it. It's not like that no one can use it, but it's going to be so individualized that I can't say whether or not it's going to work for a person to tolerate it. Definitely like try a for someone who has that type of rosacea and is wanting to try it for either the acne rosacea, photo aging, classic acne that lives alongside it, whatever. I would recommend using a lower strength first, kind of trying to walk into that retinoid space and see if you tolerate it. It's tough. This is interesting too. Let's see. Can you give your favorite skincare line? Can you give your favorite skincare line in price point for drugstore, department store, and medical grade? So there's an assumption there, though, that there's a difference between drugstore, department store, and medical grade. And that is like its own whole thing. And this is actually a very interesting thing because the utility of over-the-counter ingredients in general can come under fire. Is it effective at all? Especially compared to prescription things. And I think the answer overwhelmingly is yes. Now, does the effectiveness matter depending on if it's drugstore, department store, or medical grade? And the answer is no. Which is so interesting because from some of the people we're getting a lot of criticism, like, you shouldn't use over-the-counter products, only use these other things, or these products that are sold in the dermatology office that are medical grade. That's not a regulated term. Some of the over-the-counter product brands do a lot of testing. Some of them do very little. Some of the medical grade products do a lot of testing. Some of them do very little. Most of all of the product brands combined don't publish their data in peer-reviewed journals. And to be honest, there's so many journals now that you can pay to have your stuff published in. I'm not sure how much that actually means anymore. And it's really diluting the medical literature altogether. But with that being said, it's like, I don't think you should, in your mind, separate those 3 types of products. And I don't think you should spend more necessarily with the same thing in mind. Like, you shouldn't spend more at a department store because it's a department store. Now, medical grade is interesting because I do feel like the brands that slap medical grade on their product, again, there's not a defined term. I'm not sure it actually has any meaningful benefit, but they do seem to put out quality products. It's very rare that I get a medical grade product and I think, oh, this is like clunky in terms of even formulation. Usually they're fairly well put together. Again, I'm not saying that matters at all because it doesn't speak to anything in terms of efficacy. That is a generalization that I have kind of noticed just anecdotally though. So now, but favorite skincare line and price point. This is going to vary a little bit. In fact, there are some pretty good ones that have come out recently. So I'll share some. So I don't have a favorite because we do try a lot of things and there are a lot of good products now. Like way more than 3 years ago, the skincare industry has completely revolutionized and changed. It's really banking on those dermatologist recommended ingredients like retinoids and even urea and salicylic acid. Like they're really investing in quality products. Now, I will say some product lines that are fairly affordable that are very nice. So let me just start, like, I'm going to organize and categorize them. So let's say acne line. Cetaphil has really upped their game. Cetaphil has put out some really dynamic, their cleanser, their micronized benzoyl peroxide cleanser and their acne moisturizers. They are so good and they're very expensive. Additionally, I would say The Ordinary. I don't know why. I've kind of come back around on The Ordinary. I really, really enjoy them. It's not that anything was ever inherently wrong with them, but I like step away from it a while. Maybe just get tired of it. And I'm like, this is actually pretty good. For the price, it's reasonable. There's another one though, Urban Skin RX. I talked about one of their products last time, I think. They have some pretty dynamic products. Actually, there's another one. Let me just pause one moment. I have it right here. I want to see it, but I've really been excited to try this out. Oh, here it is. So I can't speak too much on this, but I have been pretty excited about it. Let me see their price point too before I go off here. I don't think it's particularly expensive though. Shop. Oh, that's really expensive. Forget it. It is really nice though. I don't know if it's the right thing, but okay. This is like very expensive, but I'm really excited to try these things. So the Transparent Lab, they have some really nice products. Actually, I don't know if that's right. No, that was a paid ad. This is not the right place. Hold on. I clicked on a sponsored link and it took me to the wrong place. I don't know. It's in pounds. Sorry. I'm not even sure what the price is on these things, but some of these products look really nice. So just disregard that. No, I'm trying that out this week and I'm pretty excited about that. Other price worthy ones. I think vitamin C's are an interesting thing with price because you can get some pretty expensive vitamin C's and I'm like, is it worth it? And then you have the same conversation. Is that medical grade vitamin C worth the $100+? I don't know. It might be. You might get more consistency out of it, but you'll never really know. So vitamin C is, I think, a sweet spot is probably in that $30 to $40 price range, especially if you're going for more of a classic combination with the vitamin C and the ferulic acid and antioxidants. Like Vichy has a really nice vitamin C that's at that price point. Maylove has a really nice vitamin C that's at that price point. A very budget vitamin C is Skin Diva. Skin Diva. That's at a really nice price point. I'll put a link in the description when I timestamp this for that one. It's just like has the same combination: L-ascorbic acid, ferulic acid, vitamin E. And the price point on that is outrageously low. Like that's a definitely amazing starter one. True Skin has a nice vitamin C. That one's a sodium ascorbyl phosphate, which the data on it, that is there. You know what vitamin C is really nice though is the Tula one. I think I brought that up last time. Ethyl ascorbic acid is one of my favorite subtypes of vitamin C. Not enough brands use it, but that's a really nice one. That's an expensive line though. Okay, switching gears. Where's the other doctor? Dr. Shah. So these lives are just something I kind of picked up as a pet project, just to kind of enjoy interacting with you all. So he typically doesn't. Sometimes he'll do these with me, but he hasn't done with me in a long time. We'll do those though. We're actually thinking about figuring, because I mean they're actually something we could do together remotely, which is nice because we do get together and shoot, but we could even do this live together from different places, which is amazing. That would be so fun. Again, I love the dichotomy between us more. And it makes everything so fun. So maybe we can get that going too. So this is interesting. Oh wait, Okay, well, anyway, this takes me to a place I'm going to go anywhere in the next week or so. I've already deep dived this once again. So that's what I kind of do. I'll like look at it. I have at this point, I think 300 to 400 pages of bookmarked studies that relate to skincare. And I just re-deep dived on the prebiotic, postbiotic, probiotic literature. So I'm going to put that out there soon too. But this one says, what is better for skin health? Oral pre-probiotics or topical probiotics, and then gut, brain, skin access. I'll start with the first part of that. That's the oral prebiotic, postbiotic, prebiotic, probiotic, postbiotic thing. And this is an interesting thing in skincare because a lot of the probiotics in skincare aren't actually live cultures of bacteria, and they are usually some sort of lysed version of it that still functions similarly. So technically, most things in skincare probably would function better more as postbiotics. And then there's some prebiotics, and a lot of them actually don't even have a distinctive label on it, which makes it, I mean, is that a little scammy, sketchy? Yeah, it kind of is. But it's just probiotic is the name more people are familiar with. Now, having said that, are there benefits to it? The answer is yes. So probiotics, I've said this in another video, is something the natural health space should actually be pretty proud of, because it's one of the few things that has lived up to a lot of data and scrutiny, and physiologically it makes a lot of sense. Now, it's not a cure-all like it's often touted for. One of my biggest pet peeves in all of medicine throughout my whole life actually has been the idea of things that are touted as a cure-all, because everything has a deliberate functional purpose, and this is one of those. The things that it has the most evidence for include acne, eczema, and both of those, there are some studies to support orally and topically. And for eczema in particular, there are studies showing that if a mom takes, or a person, if a mom person takes probiotics by mouth or the supplements during pregnancy, it can actually decrease the risk of the baby developing eczema early in life, which is actually pretty interesting. So there's definitely a role and a space for it there. And then also with topical, there is definitely a lot of evidence for that there as well. And then acne, same thing, some evidence for oral, some evidence for topical. Now, there is this new emerging data on probiotics and the idea of anti-aging or photoaging. Now, there's one study that I think a lot of people are referencing, and this shows that there's a decrease in wrinkles, fine wrinkles. I think even dark spots in that study too. This was published only perhaps a year ago or a year or two ago. And it showed, again, along with some lab-based studies, that probiotics can be helpful for photoaging. And it does this mostly through a protective mechanism by decreasing the damage from UVB and also decreasing collagenase and elastase, the enzymes that break down your skin with time. However, even the authors of the study said that this is actually probably clinically fairly, is it clinically relevant? It was pretty subtle in terms of the changes they saw, but it was statistically significant, which is a common theme. So even if you're using probiotics from that space topically as well, the benefits are actually fairly subtle. And I think this falls into that, going to the basic beginning of the whole talk we're doing. It goes into that setting of a supporting ingredient. It's definitely not a foundational thing. I wouldn't replace something else you're doing with it, but I definitely think adding a probiotic, prebiotic, or postbiotic, depending on the role, can have benefits in your skincare routine, especially in the acne, eczema, skin barrier, and maybe anti-aging, photoaging space as well. Now, it's the second part of this was the gut, brain, skin access. That is like, honestly, we really got to catch up there as far as data and time. Like everything kind of goes back to the idea of cortisol and its effects on the skin, tying kind of the brain and the skin together, and even some of the adrenal hormones and the other adrenal hormones in the brain. So could be there. In general, I think the basic rule of diet is kind of straightforward. It's just like, we know that eating less can prolong your telomeres. It can be healthy for the skin, not to an extreme extent, but having a moderate diet. And then also, if you stay out of the middle aisles and you just kind of eat low glycemic index foods, less simple carbs, less processed foods, it decreases your whole body inflammation overall. And I think that's generally good for you, even if it's like difficult as heck to adhere to. All right, I think just a couple more questions and then I'll have to run. But let's take a look. Let's take a look. Let's see here. More fiber. Yeah, I mean, more fiber, sure. I'm not sure how that affects your skin. In fact, the whole idea of soluble versus insoluble fiber doesn't get talked about enough, by the way. Those are very distinctly different things. Additionally, protein kind of falls into that too, where like a bagel is like, I have 9 grams of protein and I'm a bagel. But all that protein without the complementing amino acids of a legume or bean is not actually that helpful. So just saying, nutrition really is interesting. Let's see here. Oh, wait a minute. I saw something about that. Something about toner. Toners are use-worthy ? Toners. This is such an interesting topic because I think that the basic idea of toners has actually gone away. And this makes it a very difficult question to answer. Toners used to be something that were astringent to help clean and strip the skin off of residual soap scum that used to be on it. That is completely unnecessary, in my opinion, now. So an astringent toner is not needed. However, it's gotten to the point where I don't believe the term toner really exists because most of the toners now are just watery products with active ingredients. They're not very stripping. They're not meant to like remove anything. They're just a watery way to put something on the skin. So they're really just like they're just an even more watery version of a serum, in my opinion. And if that's what you're using it for, and if that's the kind of toner you're using, then by all means. In fact, I've seen so many toners lately that I'm like, this is a really nice toner. This is like a really great ingredient list. This is really nice. And it's hard to say it though, because I can't go back on the fact that you don't need a toner, but they're not really toners anymore. They're not stripping. They're not astringents. They're just great active ingredient filled products that happen to be watery like water. And so that's like the new modern toner. But it kind of goes against the heart and definition of what they originally were, which makes it kind of pretty difficult to talk about. Here's one. So I think that I'm supposed to say PCOS acne. Does it get better with oral contraceptive pills or worsens it? It actually depends on the contraception pill. There are 3 categories you have. I think one category has an estrogen component that makes the acne better. One has a component that actually has minimal effects on the acne, and then the other class can make it worse. So that's something you have to talk to your OBGYN. They are completely different, and they don't function at all the same way. But they can be extremely helpful. Oh yeah, that Isn't Free green tea toner. That thing is amazing. That product might have shown up in more videos for me over the last 2 or 3 years than any other product alone. And I don't know. I love that thing. And yeah, whey protein can cause acne as well. It contribute to it, I'll say. That's like a very important distinction. Because it cause acne? Nah, it's not going to cause acne in someone who wasn't already probably prone for it or dealing with it. But could it actually make it worse for someone who's already dealing with it? Yeah, whey protein does. But I think that it's due to the high glycemic index of it, which is, again, that reoccurring theme that I just went back to on diet. That's kind of the heart of a lot of these diet things. And then another question, does tea tree oil do anything? I will timestamp this video. We talked about that already, but I will timestamp that and put it there as well, so you can refer back to that. What can I use for acne on the back and the chest? I'm kind of going at light speed now because I'm trying to get through some of these before I hop off, but what can you use for acne on the back and the chest? So the truth of the matter is the same ingredients work there as for the face. The hardest part is how do you get those ingredients from the face onto the body? And the benzoyl peroxide wash is actually obviously the easiest one to use because it's a wash. You can spread it on the shower, clean off the area pretty well. And it's certainly the most effective cleansing ingredient. Salicylic acid cleanser, by all means. Sure, I would prefer it as a cleanser there because of the large surface area. But that's the easiest thing to do is cleanse that area. The tough thing is the topicals. Like retinoids are the most effective that you can put there as well. It's like it seems prohibitive to me. I'm like, how are you going to get a Tretinoin on your whole back? And it not only is difficult to get there, there are at CVS or Walmart. There are these medication sponges. You like slap it on. It's like a spatula, or you could use a spatula, and you can get it to the areas that you can't reach. But it's difficult, cumbersome. And I always thought, I was like, it's kind of expensive to use a prescription ingredient if you're paying. I don't know how much everybody pays for it. It's different for everyone. But to use that up on your back, it could go pretty quick. It's just a large area. Black peel treatment, good for scars. Honestly, I don't know the details of that one. That's something else I'll have to look into. Let's see here. Can you have PCOS without the ovary problems, or is it just a hormone imbalance? That's like a really nuanced question, because polycystic ovarian syndrome isn't just a problem of the ovaries. You actually have an increase, I think, LH to FSH ratio. So these are hormones that come from the pituitary gland. So PCOS is actually a problem that's more than just ovaries. It is actually a whole body hormonal imbalance. And it's a talking dynamic between the different organs. So it is more complicated than just the ovaries. And that's why it's fairly difficult, and you have to have a lot of comprehensive treatments to try to get a hold of it. Let's see here. I'm trying a new combo of niacinamide serum, retinol, and peptides, all from the Inky list, which is another nice brand that's like fairly affordable with dedicated ingredients. How does that sound for skin working on thickened skin working to thicken the skin after it being thinned by steroid creams? Yeah, that's like one of the problems with steroids long term, and why we desperately need more non-steroid anti-inflammatories. Hopefully we get more. So basically trying to thicken the skin using niacinamide or nicotinamide, retinol, and peptides. That's like fine. All three of those actually functionally work. Depending, again, do the ingredients match the desired goal? Yes. Is it the most effective combination out there? Not necessarily, but there are limitations for what every person can tolerate and how much far they want to go. So to like thicken thin skin, regardless of any cause, it's going to be similar to that idea of even stretch marks, where you're trying to rebuild the collagen with all the ingredients. Glycolic acid and exfoliators also can do this, even though those, unlike a peel, the difference between exfoliators and a peel in part is depth. But exfoliators, even though they just work on the top of the skin, the top layer of the skin, they send cell signals to increase collagen growth. And so for things like superficial surface textural changes or thin skin, it could in theory help, because glycolic acid sends cell signals to thicken it too. So that's another option. And then microneedling as well. Wait a minute. What is, not sure this question works, but your favorite over-the-counter tretinoin, etc., for mature dry skin is ? Well, tretinoin is over-the-counter in other countries, I believe, and I'm not honestly sure which ones, but it's this prescription here. We did talk about this in old videos. One of my favorite versions of this, and I did do consulting for them back in the day, like a long time ago, but Altrino is one of my favorites. It uses hydrolyzed collagen. And then it also just has this, like, some of the newer retinoids have this super nice vehicle. It's like a very lightweight gel that just feels hydrating and sits nice. Going back to Retin-A is impossible, just prescription world, sometimes because of the texture, and it's micronized too. So that helps with stability, decreasing hot spots, irritation. That's a very nice one, and one of my favorites. Still is one of my favorites and go-tos. Works really, really nice. Okay, last question. Sorry, then I got to run. Although I have really enjoyed you spending your Saturday with me, and thank you for that. What products do you recommend for hyperpigmentation and acne on the back and chest? Okay, so you gave me two things, hyperpigmentation and acne. What ingredients work on both? That would be your retinoic acid or tretinoin, or your retinoids in general, especially like tretinoin, adapalene, we'll say adapalene strength, tretinoin, and beyond. And then additionally, azelaic acid also helps with both acne and hyperpigmentation. That's a nice dynamic duo for that kind of combo problem. So that's like a good place to start for that problem in general. All right. So I do need to hop off. Like I actually got to post a couple of videos here, kind of expounding on what we've already talked about today, but in short form. We didn't get to shop with each other, but that's okay next time. So again, next time, one of the things we'll get to do again is like, we'll get to rehash some of the new products, and I'll want to hear from you while we look at them together, and new products for the month. And then also like some of the new skin headlines, and we'll incorporate that into the Q&A as well. And we'll even get to shop with each other occasionally. We're like, we'll shop a skin store together, and you get to tell me like, hey, this product looks nice. Let's try it out. And then I'll get it, and we'll see how it did for me. And you can take a look and see if it's something you want to try too. That would be fun to me, and hopefully that's fun for you. But again, I always appreciate y'all taking the time to watch our videos, hang out with me when we get to do these lives. Thank you so much for your feedback. I'll post a little snippet of that graph I made into the community section, just so you can reference back to it. You can trash it. You can say it's horrible and doesn't make any sense, because it's anecdote. Like, it's just my professional thought, personal thought, and experience. Do whatever you want with it, but I thought it was fun and interesting and useful to put together. Maybe you'll find it helpful and figure out how it could help you organize the priority of your ingredients as well. But have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Appreciate you always, genuinely, and thank you so much. We will see you next time.